In the 1980s, as video games transitioned from arcades to living rooms, competitive gaming began to emerge as a global phenomenon. Leading the charge was a group of elite players representing not just their skill, but their country, the United States National Video Game Team. Formed in 1983, the U.S. National Video Game Team was more than just a group of top players, it was a cultural milestone. Touring the nation to compete, demonstrate skill, and promote gaming, the team helped pave the way for esports as we know it today. Their legacy lives on in the history of competitive gaming, proving that even in its early days, video games were serious business. Today, we're diving into said history of the US National Video Game Team. We're going to explore its history, its wacky, wild, crazy history, its impact, and its influence on modern esports. So grab your quarters, pack your game, and join us for today's competitive trip down memory card lane. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope these words find you well. Hello and welcome to the 256th episode of our Video Game History Podcast, A Trip Down Memory Card Lane. Each week, we'll tell you a story relevant to the current week in gaming history. It can be about a game or the people who have created it. It can be about a console or the technology that brought it to life. We often talk about the companies that bring it all together, making our hobby video games a reality. While telling you each story, we hope to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. Today, we are exploring the wild history of the U.S. National Video Game Team, gaming's first professional organization dedicated to recognizing the best players in the country. From competitions to advocacy, this team was a pioneering force in legitimizing competitive gaming. It's kind of where esports started. I'm David Casson, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, who'd probably get benched for spending too much time customizing his controller. He's my brother, Rob Casson. Rob, do you think you'd qualify for the team, or would you end up as their water boy?
Oh, man, you had to hit me with the water boy.
I had to hit you with the water boy.
Yeah, I'll be the water boy. Let's be
Deal.
real. He had more fun.
Deal. Maybe, perhaps, Rob, you'd get subbed out for our returning guest, Dave Seeley, who's basically our podcast version of the U.S. National Video Game Team. So
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or an insult.
he's highly skilled, he's historically significant, and he probably is going to be carrying us through this episode. Maybe not.
Yeah, one of those is true. We can figure out which one it is by the end.
Dave, if you had been back around in the 80s of age to be part of the National Video Game Team when it was touring malls and arcades, what game do you think you would have dominated, and what nickname might you have gone by?
In the 80s, I probably would have been something like One Bad Dude, or like the Radical Kid.
The Radical Kid's a good one. Yeah, for sure.
And I would have probably been a Tetris master.
Ooh, that is a good one, actually. Rob, what about you? What do you think your game might have been from the classics? And what would your nickname be?
Asteroid, the Ass Blaster.
Oh, boy.
We can't take you anywhere.
I just teed that up way too well. I did not mean for that to happen, but I'm glad it did.
What about yourself?
Boy, I knew that you were going to ask me that the moment it came out of my mouth, and I have zero clue. What is my favorite game from that time period? I probably would play Space Invaders, and I mean, the only nickname I could think of is Awesome Dave, because everything was awesome in the 80s. So I would have to be lame like that, I think, since Dave took Radical. Well, I have a wild one today. I honestly I didn't go into the story expecting it to be a wild story. We've talked about time and time again how Sometimes I pick a topic without, diving completely into it, and then I find really crazy, interesting things. And this is definitely one of those weeks, and I was excited about it, which is why I invited Dave once I found out how asinine this is going to
I
be.
do. I want to preface. Can I read? Can I read your text message to me? Is that allowed, or does that give too much
No,
away?
you can definitely you can definitely read my text message. Be my guest.
So, in the middle of my workday, apropos of nothing, I receive a text from my good friend Dave Casson, which says, "I don't know if you're doing anything later, but have I got a story for you. It involves a circus and a guy looking to train chimpanzees to play Pac-Man against human opponents. And let me tell you, I was hooked."
That
All
is a
right.
fact. That
Wow.
is a fact. So, boy, have I got a story. But before we get there,
Thank you, by the way, for actually having one and not lying to me. Thank you.
this one's fun. This one's definitely fun. Before we get there, though, there have been some other things that have happened during this week in gaming history. So, Rob, why don't you share those with us?
All right. Well, kicking it off on July 20th, 1990, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake was released exclusively for the MSX2 in Japan, once again putting players in the boots of Foxhound operative Solid Snake. Directed by Hideo Kojima, this sequel built on the foundation of the original Metal Gear, pushing the stealth action genre forward with smarter enemy AI, new gameplay mechanics like crawling and a radar system, and a much more intricate storyline. This time, Snake is sent to Zanzibar land to rescue a kidnapped scientist and prevent the deployment of a new Metal Gear, raising the stakes and the complexity. Metal Gear 2 introduced features that would become staples of the series, from codec conversions and environmental stealth to a deeper focus on narrative and moral ambiguity. Though it was initially limited to Japan, the game would later gain international recognition and is now seen as a pivotal entry that bridged the gap between the 8-bit original and the cinematic leap that would follow with Metal Gear Solid.
All right. Well, Metal. Dave, did you ever play Metal Gear Two? Was a Japanese release, so I was going to ask you if you played it, but realistically, none of us have ever played it.
So actually, gonna have a moment of vulnerability if this is a safe space. Um, I've never played a Metal Gear game.
Oh,
Well,
um,
that's not entirely true. I played the first 30 seconds of the one for the Nintendo, but that's real hard. I was like 10.
it is
So
so hard. It
um,
is so hard.
it's one of those things where at this point I'm like a bit like Andy Dwyer in Parks and Rec. Like I don't know what's happening, and I'm afraid to ask. Like there's like 19 Metal Gear games. There's Snake, but there's also Solid Snake, and like I don't know which one I should go in on. Like do I read a summary and just pick any of them, or do I just sort of like you know resign myself to defeat and that I'll never play any of them?
that that's a fantastic question. That is such an bonkers series. I don't have a good answer for that. It is one of the most outlandish stories ever, and that's why people seem to like it. So,
I'm with Dave on this one. That's also how I feel about Metal Gear.
really, yeah, that's yeah. I have played a bunch of them.
Just for clarity, which Dave?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for being so informative. All right, what's next?
Next up, on July 24th, 1997, Monster Rancher was released for the PlayStation in Japan, offering a fresh and inventive twist on the monster battling genre. Developed by Tecmo, the game set itself apart with a unique mechanic. Players could generate monsters by inserting different CDs into the console, each disc producing a creature with its own traits and abilities. Once summoned, monsters could be trained, battled, and cared for over time, blending life simulation elements with tournament style combat. With its emphasis on raising, bonding, and strategic planning, Monster Rancher struck a different tone from more action oriented competitors like Pokemon, building a loyal fan base and launching a series that would span games, anime, and more. Its creative use of hardware and genre blending gameplay made it a standout title in the PlayStation library and a nostalgic favorite for many.
Including me. It's funny because we've talked about how I never got hooked by Pokemon, but I rented Monster Rancher from the video store multiple times just to see all the different monsters I could summon with different CDs in the house.
Yeah, see, I bought the PC Steam versions. I was just playing Monster Rancher about 2 weeks ago, man.
Nice, very
So
nice.
I get it.
I guess we're all into it now.
So
Dave,
uh,
how does that work now?
yeah, good
You know,
question.
one of the things that we lose as consoles, are phased out, and then the games are either never brought back or ported to other systems, is the idiosyncrasies of the systems they were born on. The Dreamcast had the controller within the controller that had its own screen. Um, you could stop a PlayStation and put in a different CD to for Monster Rancher and things like that. So how did the game handle that aspect on Steam?
so I did not do too much with the selecting monster. I focus more on the training and things of that. So I don't know if there was a way that you could have summoned them. I know that when I went to the store initially, you could pick a specific one, but it didn't seem like there was any obvious way to do that to try to simulate a CD pull.
So essentially, you bought one of the more modern Monster Ranchers that probably is just a more traditional monster battling game.
No, it's like straight up the original,
Oh,
but
nice.
I just didn't play around too much with that side of it because
Gotcha.
I was like trying to figure out how to play it all again, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
so
All right, what else we got?
well, next on July 24th, 2001, Max Payne was released for PC, introducing players to a gritty, bullet-riddled descent into revenge and noir storytelling. Developed by Remedy Entertainment and published by Gathering of Developers, the game followed former NYPD detective Max Payne as he unraveled a dark conspiracy behind the murder of his family. What set Max Payne apart, beyond its graphic novel style cutscenes and moody atmosphere, was its signature bullet time mechanic, which let players slow down combat to dodge bullets and line up cinematic takedowns with balletic precision. It was a breakthrough moment for third person shooters, blending style, story, and gameplay in a way few games had before. Max Payne earned critical acclaim and spawned a successful franchise, helping to shape the modern action genre. We actually dove into its gritty origins and legacy back in episode 47, so check that out if you want to explore the world of painkillers and slow motion shootouts.
And the demo scene. That was the word I was looking for.
The demo scene, yeah,
The demo
uh,
scene.
yeah, pretty cool thing.
What's the demo scene?
The demo scene is a European PC 3D PC graphics and music. It was like an art scene that would combine music with early 3D graphics. Think like our screensavers from the 90s type. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And a lot of the programmers that Remedy Swedish, a lot of the programmers that formed some of the most popular companies in Sweden, including Remedy, got their start in the demo scene.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. They were. It's basically like a hacker subculture essentially that got
Sure.
into art. So
And to learn more, go check out episode 47.
47 or the Angry Birds episode. We covered it in that one too because those are both from the same area and both demo scene companies. Next,
Hell of one to have off the top of your head with Angry Birds. Anywho, on July 21st, 2010, Limbo was released on Xbox Live Arcade, introducing players to a hauntingly beautiful world where storytelling unfolded in shadows and silence. Developed by Danish studio Play Dead, Limbo is a minimalist puzzle platformer that follows a nameless boy navigating a mysterious and deadly landscape in search of his missing sister. Its stark black and white visuals, eerie sound design, and physics based puzzles created an atmospheric experience that was equally parts poetic and unsettling. With no dialogue or text, Limbo relied entirely on visual storytelling and environmental cues, earning widespread acclaim for its artistic direction and emotional depth. It became a landmark indie title, helping to prove that small experimental games could stand shoulder to shoulder with big budget releases and leave a lasting impact on the indie game movement.
Dave, did you ever play Limbo?
I don't think I did.
I remember when Limbo came out, that was really early on when indie games were just becoming a thing. We had Braid and we had World of Goo and Limbo here, and those were some of the earliest quote unquote indie titles I can remember. And I think back to that time period when we didn't really know what indie games were before indie game developers proliferated into the gaming industry. It was a different time period.
For sure.
This
I'm looking it up. I may have played it, particularly if it was, you know, at some point available as like a flash game or something.
or Humble Bundle game. It's been in so many bundles as I
Yeah,
recall.
but I've played like Cave Story and the one game where you move a ball of light around or something. Like I've played a number of indie games from that era that were really, it was refreshing to have something that was clearly a passion project that wasn't focus group to death, and and was just like, no, this is what I want to make, and it's the game you're going to play or not. I don't really care. It was
I like the moody stuff. I like the artsy stuff that plays around with different art styles and different ways to tell stories and everything. And this
absolutely
was so different than anything that was out at the time. It was such a it remains to this day. It's kind of timeless. It's a really cool game. So go play
right. I will log off and go play it then.
it. Don't do that. Play it
No,
after.
yeah,
Play it after.
okay.
And
Okay.
with that, the last up in this week of gaming history, on July 25th, 2017, Epic Games launched Fortnite in early access, debuting with Save the World, a cooperative survival mode where players built defenses, crafted weapons, and fought off waves of zombie like enemies. While the mode was praised for its blend of action and creativity, it wasn't until a few months later that Fortnite truly exploded onto the scene with the launch of its free to play Battle Royale mode. Combining fast paced 100-player combat with the game's unique building mechanics, Fortnite Battle Royale quickly became a global sensation. Its colorful visuals, frequent content updates, and cross platform accessibility helped it dominate pop culture, from esports to dance crazes and in game concerts. What started as a niche survival game turned into one of the most iconic and influential titles of the modern era, redefining what a live service game should be.
And now those 100-player combats are 32-player combats. They have like this little blitz mode that is super quick, and it's hitting the sweet spot for a big chunk of Fortnite's player base, to be honest with you.
I Do you remember that you and I played that for like 3 days when it first came out as a battle royale?
I was wondering that. I got banned after those 3 days. Did you know that? I don't think we've ever had that conversation. I don't
No,
I
for
don't
being too good, or
I don't I
He
wish.
used the gamer word.
I don't know what I did in that time period, but my account was banned from Fortnite after we played it those 3 days. And until like September or October of last year, it remained banned. I don't know what I did. And over the years, I had tried multiple times to get it unbanned, and it kept getting denied. Then supposedly in September or October, they did this widespread unbanning for stupid crap. And apparently I was on the list because I got unbanned, and I've been playing it periodically because my wife plays it almost every day actually. I've been playing it periodically since September. So, but yeah, I don't know what I did, and I kind of forgot that, to be honest with you, because I was so focused on the fact I was banned. But do you remember how much I didn't like it?
I remember you and I played it like 2 or 3 nights for a couple hours a night,
Mm,
and it was just like, what the heck's going on?
yeah,
What is the point of this? I'd rather play almost anything else.
that's how I felt at the time.
And I'm eager to. I'm not eager. I'm willing to try it again.
Oh, it is way better. Oh my
Um,
god, it is so
but
much better, so much better.
but also, like, if I'm gonna play a battle royale game, I'd kind of rather play like Mech Warrior Online because I like being in a giant stompy
Yeah,
robot.
yeah. It's definitely not for everyone, but I will tell you, it is way more enjoyable now, and they have what's called the OG modes, where you can go back and play it in the first couple seasons, and I can't stand that mode. Like I go back to that mode and I remember why we put it down and I never want to play it ever again. And so like you can still play both and it's easy to have a comparison for the two. I don't mind the modern one. Like I'm not hooked on it. Like, honestly, Lace plays every day, but I'll join them every so often. And I really like the Blitz mode because it doesn't feel like as much of an investment when it goes quick. Like games are 5, 6, 7 minutes long. You know, kind of like Rocket League titles.
Sure,
So it's like
sure.
quickly in and out, and it's kind of fun. So
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for a game that doesn't overstay its welcome.
yep, yep, yep.
And when the game takes an hour for a match and it doesn't feel good when you're done, then
Yeah,
that's really bad. But for a 5 or 10 minute game, okay, well that one wasn't so good, but I can get two more in before I have to go to bed or whatever. So,
yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the U.S. national video game team.
oh, wait, what?
The U.S. national video game team.
Why? I thought we just were done with the podcast.
No, we're gonna move on to the U.S.
There's
national.
more.
There's a lot more. I have a whole
Oh my
story to
goodness!
tell. I have an exciting story to tell. I have literally told this story like 5 times today to anyone that will listen because it is such an outlandish story. Like I have been yapping about it all day. So now I get to yap about it and on record so other people can listen to it. So here we
Fantastic! I'm here for it.
go. Walter Day has held many jobs in his life. He is an interesting dude. He went to college, didn't finish, was an amateur ragtime pianist in the late 70s, early 80s. He sold,
As one does, we all have our stints.
yeah,
No
yeah, yeah.
judgment.
He sold vintage and commemorative newspapers. He left that job that was in Iowa and went to Houston, spending some time working as an oils future trader in 1980. And when the oil market hit a sharp decline, he found himself kind of coming back to Iowa. In his downtime, he started writing like a who's who's book about the petroleum industry.
Jesus
And
Christ.
during this down period, a friend invited him to a local arcade. And from the moment he walked inside, he was like hooked on video games. And so he decided that he wanted to play more video games. So in order to do so, he opened up his own arcade.
Wow.
Everyone does, right, Rob? We do that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Twin Galaxies, Walter Day's Arcade, was founded in Ottumwa, Iowa on November 10th, 1981. And he spent his days both running the arcade and spending the time playing the games within. And it was successful. That was the golden age of arcades, after all, so they were doing good. On January 18th, 1982, Time magazine publishes an issue which talks about the increasing success and popularity of the video games period as its cover story. Video games are on the cover. And in the middle of the story, there's this personal anecdote from Chicago about a player who had earned 15 million points on a single quarter playing a game of Defender. And this was discussed around his arcade, and it, one player said, "Hey, I've done that, or I can beat that," and they all talked about it. And so they were thinking to themselves, like, "Hey, is this actually a world record? Like, what's the world record?" So Walter begins to call around to other gaming magazines and to the gaming companies himself, and he starts asking them, "Hey, what's the high score? What's the high score? What's the high score?" And he found that nobody was keeping tabs. No, there was no table, there was no scorekeeper, there was simply no one that was taking a record of high scores of any kind.
It's shameful.
Well, he did something about it. He offered up his services. They kept a scoreboard of high scores in his arcade in Twin Galaxies, so he thought to himself, why don't I extend that courtesy to everyone else? And so he called back the magazines and he called back the gaming companies and he said, "Here's my phone number. If somebody calls about a high score, send them my way." The first day he did it, he made 9 phone calls to various companies and he put the phone down. He went about his day. 30 minutes later, he's playing a video game. He gets tapped on the shoulder by one of his, employees and he says, "Hey, there's a phone call for you." Picks up the phone. There's some kid from the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, calling him to report a high score on Galaga. And the calls never really stopped, ever. In fact, the Twin Galaxies National Scoreboard is still to this day the keeper of high scores and records.
Nice.
On February 9th, 1982, this database of records was publicly announced as the Twin Galaxies National Scoreboard. Over the weekend of August 27th through 30th, Twin Galaxies held its first organized event. It was called the California Challenges North Carolina All-Star Playoff. That's a mouthful. And it pit two teams of the top players from these two states as they played 17 different games at assigned arcades in their respective states, vying for high scores. And they chose those states, according to Walter, because they had the highest number of record holders at the time. So basically, two locations, one in each state. They all played the high score. I didn't even think to look who won. I have no clue. That's in my brain now. For his part, Walter remained the steward of the scoreboard. He stayed involved with Twin Galaxies, I think, till about 2010. In 1983, the Guinness Book of World Records recognized video games as its own as a new category, and Twin Galaxies became its official supplier of high scores. Walter Day was held in such high esteem then because he was the only scorekeeper, but he was held in such high esteem that for the 1984 through 1986 editions, he was actually hired on as the assistant editor in charge of the video game scores. And through this period, Twin Galaxies continued to thrive, both as a arcade location in the golden age of arcades and as the national scorekeeper, basically. In November of 1982, Ottumwa mayor declared the city the video game capital of the world, and that was quickly followed by the governor of Iowa, who echoed that sentiment. And then in January, the Amusement Game Manufacturer Association said the same thing. In fact, if you go to Ottumwa's website, it still recognizes them as the video game capital of the world.
Wow.
Yeah, well, there's this arcade doesn't exist anymore. They have one of those, like, you know how at notable sites, historical sites, they have a brass plaque.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that exists of Twin Galaxies now as a physical location.
Sad.
With Twin Galaxies' help, high score charts began to appear in all the places it wasn't before. Video game magazines like Electronic Fun, Video Games Magazine, Computer Games Magazine. They also started publishing high score charts in general publications. USA Today had a high score chart in it. In January of 1983, Twin Galaxies held its first Coronation Day ceremony, where its honored players, company, and part of the video game industry itself was literally crowned for various things. It was an award ceremony. As part of the festivities, several of the nation's top players who had called in the highest scores were sat in front of their favorite video games to attempt to set new world records, while a television crew from ABC filmed for a show called It's Incredible. And with the world watching ABC, Tim McVeigh of Ottumwa racked over 1 billion points on a game called Nibbler. It was the first time anyone had ever bore witness to scores that exceeded, the millions. First time we had ever seen billion anything on a video game. Fun side note, it was so much a windfall, like the publicity and everything for Ottumwa, that later that January, the city declared a Tim McVeigh Day, and they gifted him the Nibbler cabinet, or a Nibbler cabinet, rather. Across the nation, in Boston, there is a guy named Jim Riley who catches this television segment on ABC, and an idea came to him. A freaking awesome idea. He imagined a traveling circus of video games. In his mind, Walter Day was the ringmaster, and all of these amazing video game players were the performers. It was going to be a traveling circus of video games, an electronic circus, as it was later advertised to the world. And it was when he first announced, he talked a good game. He envisioned live music, amusement rides. There would be a Disney World type section featuring live shows. He envisioned like a Captain Kidd type show. And the main focus, the main event, if you will, the all the primetime stuff would be spread across, in his mind, they were three main events, the three rings of the circus. Now, the first ring was going to be the world's largest video arcade. They were going to buy 500 arcade cabinets and put them all on free play for people to play when they visit the circus. The second amusement was going to be the video circus. And the video circus, in Riley's mind, had three rings in itself. One was going to feature the band called the Video Experience that would perform against the high tech ambience of the arcade. You know, all the beeps and boops and bips.
Yeah.
The next was going to feature the antics of your favorite video game characters like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. Everything I read on this suggested that in his mind it would be kind of like Pac-Man on ice or Donkey Kong on ice.
I simultaneously do and enthusiastically do or don't and enthusiastically do want Donkey Kong on ice.
Yeah, for sure. DK on ice, man. And the third would be the way I lured you here today. The third ring in his second event would be the Chimpanzee Pac-Man Challenge, where he envisioned trained chimpanzees taking on human opponents playing Pac-Man.
I'll tell you, I would not want to play a chimp in Pac-Man.
No?
Or any game. Well, no. So here's the thing. I'm going to beat the chimp, right? I mean, not by a mile, but I'm going to beat the chimp because my thumbs are more opposable and I have a few more wrinkles in my brain. It'll be close, but I'll win. And then I'll get the banana or whatever the prize is, which will greatly upset the chimp, who will then proceed to tear me limb from limb. They're ferociously strong. So it's a lot like, let the Wookiee win, but real and a chimpanzee.
Can you imagine, though, how awesome this would be if they actually got trained chimps to take on human opponents? I mean, that's a little foreshadowing, but can you even imagine?
It would not end well for somebody. I'll tell you that, man.
It would be wild. The Electronic Circus would culminate in the third ring, the main event, which was going to be the Superstar Pro Tour, where he envisioned 30 video game superstars on hand, spread across 10 different arcade titles, to take on anyone who thought they could stand toe to toe with the video game champions of the world. He talked up a 40-week, 200 city tour that he hoped would raise the popularity of gaming and rehabilitate its image, actually, because arcades were seen as shady places. Video games weren't the wholesome, activity that parents wanted their kids to do necessarily. So to that end, the rehabilitation, he had planned on having any players that agreed to go on tour adhere to a strict set of guidelines that included curfews and conduct with groupies, what they could and couldn't do, basically. There were moral restrictions they had to abide by. There were rules to go on tour. He got out in front of the people, and he said that players could earn up to $3,000 a week playing video games, and even teased the possibility of product endorsements. He had kind of said, hey, first place is going to get 3,000, second place is going to get 2,000, third place is going to get 1,000, all the way down to you could earn a couple $100, I think was the minimum. And basically said, if you're the top player of the tournament and you win week after week after week after week for 40 weeks, you could potentially walk away with $120,000 before product endorsements. I mean, that still sounds good by today's standard, let alone 1981, 82 standards,
Yeah, that's insane. That's absolutely insane.
There were a handful of kids that had been consistently breaking the records on some of the most popular arcade cabinets out there. If you've seen any of the documentaries from the arcade era, you're going to know some of the names. The oldest of them was Steve Sanders. Steve Sanders, joust world champion, high score guy, and as such, he was asked to captain what would be known as the U.S. national video game team. And so he teams up with his best friend, fellow arcade high scorer, really well-known guy from this period, Billy Mitchell, the king of Pong.
Oh, Billy Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
I know. We all know Billy Mitchell.
I probably shouldn't say anything else before he sues me.
100% true. Absolutely. So Steve Sanders and Billy Mitchell are put together to assemble a team of players, but that honestly proves to be more difficult than they thought. There's an anecdote from Steve where he called someone he knew that had advertised a bunch of high scores. He knew it was BS, but he did it anyways. And he called this guy and he's like, "Hey, you can make like $6,000 playing video games." And the guy was like, "Well, my normal job is better." He hangs up the phone on him. So,
Wow.
um,
So
so
speaking of dollars, $120,000 in 1982 is estimated to be about $400,000 today.
man, oh man, oh man, oh man.
And their normal job was
So,
better, huh?
and so you said first place got $3,000 a week. So
Yeah.
that's roughly about $10,000 in today's money.
That's just crazy. Well, that's where they started. You know,
Yeah.
they were struggling to find people to join the team. In fact, the whole Electronic Circus just proved to be more difficult, not live up to any expectations. Have either of you heard of the Electronic Circus before?
Negative.
No, I have not.
Neither have I, and it's amazing. I don't know what we need to do, like a whole documentary in Electronic Circus. I want to know more about these trained chimpanzees. Um, By the time the team was assembled, a 200 city tour was whittled down to 48 cities. Rob, I looked. Como Hall and Detroit was on there. I guess Dave, I looked since you're both in Michigan.
Yeah, right
Um,
on.
so they were going to come here, there, whatever. In fact, I don't think they were going to come here. I didn't see New Orleans on the list.
He's doxing.
When I know, right? When the Electronic Circus finally opened up in Boston on July 14th, 1983, there was plenty to be excited about, no doubt. It had rock bands and gospel bands. In fact, the 80s band Air Supply was on hand instead of the band Video Experience. They had Air Supply, so that's pretty cool. There were amusement rides. There were talking robots. There were clowns, magicians, jugglers, knife throwers, and they found 515 arcade cabinets, set on free play for people to play. There were not, on the other hand, trained chimpanzees facing off against human opponents in the second ring. There was, instead, Congo the gorilla from the show Trading Places, which of course was just a guy in a gorilla suit. They stuck Congo the gorilla on stage while someone stood off stage playing the game for the demonstration.
Oh my
They
god.
didn't even have the guy in the gorilla suit play the game.
Wow.
What the heck, man?
Oh my god. Oh, I love how we went from trained chimpanzees to Congo to the gorilla to a guy in a gorilla suit. We couldn't even stick with the chimp theme.
I mean, this is like classic. Like, hey, can we have a chimp? We have a chimp at home.
Right? Right? Exactly. That's exactly it. Exactly. And as for the Superstar Pro Tour, well, they managed to cobble together 8 of the nation's top players to be featured as the main event. They were paid, though not nearly what they were promised. When they showed up, 3,000 a week turned into $200 a week. And right from the get-go, it was clear that things were not as great as they seemed. They were booked and put up in a 5-star hotel. After 2 days, they were kicked out of the hotel because the bill was never paid.
Ah!
So all the gamers moved themselves nearby to a low rent inn. Riley, for his part as the organizer, wanted to make everything seem better than it was. So the gamers were put up in 5-star hotels. They were treated to steak and lobster dinners. They were put up in a skybox for a Red Sox game. While they were at the Red Sox game, an airplane with a banner flew overhead that advertised Electronic Circus, and for its part, it had a little bit of a media campaign, not as much as they probably should, but it had a media campaign. In order to fund this ridiculous endeavor, the company kind of expected attendance to be in excess of 10,000 people per day. Walter Day, in an anecdote about this, told this really interesting story where he came in one day, and the moment he realized that they were in trouble was when he sat down for a magician show. And the magician came out there, Walter sitting in the front row, not really paying attention to anything going on around him. And Walter comes in and the magician says, "Okay, I need 2 volunteers from the audience." And Walter looks around and he and one other person are the only people in the audience.
Oh no.
Oops.
The organizers have come out and said about 2,000 people per day actually showed up. But there are people who have countered that and said, well, 2,500 is about the amount that showed up for the entire length of the circus, which was 4 days.
Oh my god. Yeah.
After 4 days, they shut down the entire Electronic Circus.
So this was the Fire Festival of video games.
That's a very good way to put it. That is an excellent way to put it. You know, the Electronic Circus it's a funny story. It's a ridiculously funny story. I mean, where else I never thought I'd ever be talking about chimps playing video games in the context of what we're doing week after week. So, I'm not complaining for starters cuz this has tickled my funny bone all day. And like I said, I have told anyone that will listen about the guy in the gorilla suit.
Sure. No, yeah. I wonder if I can show up to work in a gorilla suit
That
and
is
have that work out
phenomenal.
in my favor.
And so the Electronic Circus, really didn't do much, but it does represent the first time in history that we know of anyone that was contractually paid to play video games. So there you go.
Interesting. Okay.
It's not the first video game team in history, though. Did a little bit of research on that. That distinction belongs to a group of students at North Missouri State University. They ended up in Time magazine after forming a collegiate video game club in October of 1982, a few months before the Electronic Circus.
Okay. Okay.
So, the Electronic Circus is a complete bust, but there was still more left in store for the U.S. national video game team. So, yeah, between Traveling Gorillas, Arcade All Stars, and ambitious cross country dreams, the Electronic Circus was wild. It was bold, chaotic, and maybe a bit too far ahead of its time.
Honestly, it kind of reminds me of starting a podcast. Big dreams, a ton of moving parts, and if you're not careful, you might end up sleeping in a 2-star motel with 500 arcade cabinets.
Thankfully, modern podcasting doesn't require a tour bus or Walter Day's phone book. These days, you've got Zencaster to make things simple.
Zencaster's all in one platform lets you record high quality audio and video right in your browser. No tech crew, no equipment truck, just you, your mic, and your story.
And once you're done recording, Zencaster's post-production tools clean everything up like a perfectly timed Galaga shot. They remove background noise, balance your audio, and trim the awkward pauses automatically.
When you're ready to go live, publishing is a breeze. Zencaster helps you distribute to all of the big platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts with just a few clicks.
So whether you're chasing high scores or just telling great stories, head over to zencaster.com/pricing and use our offer code all one word memory card lane, and you'll get 30% off the first month of any Zencaster paid plan.
Don't let your creative vision end up like the Electronic Circus. Amazing idea, bad logistics. Let Zencaster be your ringmaster.
No gorilla suits required for that one. Start your podcasting journey today with Zencaster. Well, the Electronic Circus never lived up to its vision. Walter Day wasn't ready to give up on the potential of raising the status of video games. He envisioned taking what was left of the US national video game team on the road, right? The Electronic Circus had started on July 14th, and like I said, it was done within 5 days, so it was done by the 19th. On July 25th, Walter Day had an announcement. After the high top of the Electronic Circus came crashing down, he decided to take it on the road himself. He reestablished the national team with him as the captain, and he took along 5 members from the original team. They were going to take a bus tour across the country. Now, that team was planning on visiting various cities. They would challenge players of local arcades while they were there. And the tour was going to culminate actually at the White House. They envisioned like being greeted by Ronald Reagan. And then while they were there, they were going to set up international competitions in the foreign embassies.
Okay.
To start things off, Walter Day launched what was the most ambitious gaming tournament to date, the North American Video Game Challenge. It was both to showcase the team, and he planned on taking the winners and filling the slots that were still empty from the size of the team that he originally envisioned, right? And as they went around across the country, players were competing on arcade titles like Mario Brothers, Sin Star, and Congo Bongo. They had 10 coveted national spots open that they could compete for. Day and these five people kicked off the tour in a rented 1953 city bus fitted with 10 arcade machines that were powered by a generator. And they were aiming to like raise money for charity, as well as like gather official proclamations from mayors and governors along the way. Like they were literally looking to raise gaming status. That's why they wanted to culminate in Washington D.C. and get the president's blessing before heading off to the Japanese embassy and trying to legitimize this concept on international terms, right? So that was the dream. But that dream quickly descended into chaos. By the time the last team member arrived in Iowa, like 1 or 2 days before they were supposed to take off, the rest of the team was camped out on the floor of Twin Galaxies and completely out of money. They were so afraid to admit the situation to their parents that they didn't. They stayed quiet because they didn't want to be taken off the tour. The kids didn't have money. Walter didn't have money. He put what's said to be like his last $60 in uniforms for the team, like t-shirts, like printed t-shirts for the team. And of course they needed money for food, which they didn't really have, gas, things like that, right?
Right.
So they're already off on the wrong foot. So they take this 1953 bus out, and on every single leg of the tour, the bus has a mechanical breakdown. Every
Yeah,
single leg
because
of
it's a
the tour.
40-year-old bus.
I know. And like they are lucky that they have people in the community that are fans of what they're doing that will donate their time and money to fix the bus. The team slept on the floor of the bus. They sometimes slept on the floor of the arcades they visited. And once they were lucky enough that the owner of one of those arcades put them up on his living room floor.
Oh my god.
And they begged for food. They scraped. They took free meals wherever they could get them. At one point, that city bus broke down. They blew a head gasket, right? And when the person repaired it, because it wasn't beyond repair, he forgot to put oil in the bus,
Oh no, 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 no.
and they didn't get very far. So the bus was done. The bus and the arcades, they were done. So they managed to locate a school bus to carry on with the tour. So they start another leg of the tour on a school bus, not comfortable, don't have their arcades. This bus was broken into while they were sleeping on a floor somewhere, and many members of the team had a lot of their stuff they brought with them stolen.
Oh my god. It's just oh my god.
So they sold the bus and they squeeze into a rental car to continue the trip. While they're on this leg of the trip, one of their team members gets sick enough he has to be like hospitalized for a day or two. So that's a hot mess. And it just nothing is going right, obviously. Eventually, they make it to Seattle where they are invited into Nintendo headquarters. This is the godsend. Nintendo gives them free handheld games, and more importantly, Nintendo gives them free food. They were more excited for the food than anything else. They had been scrounging up those free meals, and the food was what they needed. In fact, within 4 days, they had sold all the handheld games that they were given from Nintendo in order to buy food for further parts of the trip. So
Jesus.
so after Seattle, they head south to San Diego because Sega of America's headquarters is in San Diego. While they're at Sega of America's headquarters, the company employees learn that Sega proper had been bought by Bally and they were planning on shutting Sega of America down. So the anecdote from the team is that employees were crying and we literally saw ourselves out.
Oh my god.
This is a disaster. Everything about the US national video game team is an absolute disaster.
I mean, this is like underdog comedy.
It would make a great movie, wouldn't it? Someone needs to make a movie about the national video game team. It would literally, like, you don't even have to rewrite the story. The story in itself would make a fantastic movie.
Hey,
Oh,
they tried with Pixels.
yeah, I mean, it does have Billy Mitchell. So that was it. The Sega thing was it. They were beaten down, they were starving, they were demoralized. That was the nail in the coffin for this trip. So they packed it up and went home. The members of the US national team went back to their respective homes. The tournament had a winner declared, and at the next coronation day, they were crowned Player of the Year. They never made it to Washington, D.C., they never hosted an international challenge. There was other stuff going on too. As we all know, the great video game crash of 1983 happens, and so arcades are not doing well. In fact, the physical location of Twin Galaxies actually shuts down on March 6, 1984, because he was broke. Walter Day was broke. Not everything about the U.S. national video game team was bad, though. Through its publicity on the tour, because of course they're not going to advertise the bad stuff, they did acquire new members. And so there was a new, bigger, stronger team. And in February of 1984, they attended the AMOA, the Amusement Organization's Expo in New Orleans, and began a long-standing tradition of having the team review new games in the industry. Later in 1984, some of the players of the team did get invited to Washington, D.C., and met the president. After visiting the White House, they moved on to the Italian embassy, who took them up on their video game challenge. So they were able to host an international challenge, right? After visiting the Italian embassy, they did visit the Japanese embassy per their original plans, but when they got there, they were met with a bunch of bewildered diplomats who berated them for playing foolish video games and sent them on their way. We don't have time for your childish games. There's the door, is essentially how it went. Following their chaotic 1983 tour, the U.S. national video game kind of pressed forward into the mid 80s, evolving from this scrappy road trip crew into kind of a more structured organization. In February of 1984, they hosted the first Canada USA Video Game Team Conference. That was kind of the first serious attempt to take this idea of gaming competitions international. The very first official United States National Video Game Team Championship was held in 1985. Players competed on what were popular arcade kits at the time, like Karate Champ, Kung Fu Master, Commando, and Gridiron Fight. By 86, Walter Day had stepped away from the team itself. You know, with the arcade closing, he had other things going on, which I'll talk about in a moment. And others stepped into leadership role. There are other names like Jeff Peters, Steve Harris, Don Nauert stepped up as team captain. And under all this new management, the team began to expand its influence beyond tournaments. They began publishing the Top Score newsletter and eventually Electronic Game Player magazine, which is kind of like a spiritual predecessor to Electronic Gaming Monthly. Don Nauert even appeared in Atari 7800 commercials, and he served as referee for a televised NES competition on That's Incredible, which was the ABC show that started this whole mess. And that competition is often viewed as a precursor to the 1990 World Championships, Nintendo World Championships, that are very well known. So a lot of stuff was going on. The team continued to hold official tournaments. In 1987, they organized the Video Game Masters tournament with the Guinness Book of World Records blessing, kind of cementing their role in validating gaming accomplishments. And from 91 to 94, they kind of maintained a monthly presence in the pages of Electronic Gaming Monthly. There was a feature called the U.S. National Video Game Team's International Scoreboard, and that was a full page high score table that highlighted top players from around the world. So they definitely didn't have that prominence, right? They faded from prominence from where it started and in the years that followed. But this early effort really helped establish a framework for competitive gaming. We look at this period as the groundwork for what later would become esports, you know? It was a pioneering force in treating video games as a legitimate competitive sport long before we had esports arenas and multi-million dollar prize pools. So, like the Electronic Circus, this time period didn't do much, but it's an important step in history to where we are now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I gotta tell you, so Walter Day is a ridiculous individual. They just released a documentary on him earlier this year called Arcades and Love Songs, because in 2010 he gave up his gaming career because he went on tour as like the referee of gaming, and when you see him, he's often in a referee outfit. A lot of pictures of him are in a referee outfit. He went on like the gaming con tour, right? And that's how he sustained his appearances and his persona for years. But in 2010, he kind of retired from video games because he wanted to fulfill his dreams of being a famous musician. And he said he had like 158 songs in his head that he needed to record and put out into the world. He had to put out into the world. And this documentary is one of those like Walter Day's going to write his music and publish and perform his first ever live concert, and it's basically that story. Like that's how it's framed. Like it's the gaming world getting behind Walter Day to help him realize his dreams of being a professional musician. I haven't watched it yet. I learned about it when I was doing my research for this recently. It is queued up. It's in my queue. I am going to watch it. There is so much weird stuff. I watched a little news story from a show called Walter Day and the Golden Domes. There are two golden domes close to it, where he grew up in Iowa that are, I don't remember the religion. I'm sorry. I know it's Buddhist or Nirvanism or Transcendentalism. It's one of those things. And he's big into this religion and talks about how he had to go every day and meditate and clear himself and get in touch with his inner chakras and what have you in order to like make all of this happen. He is a an interesting fellow. He's a really interesting fellow. Really interesting fellows.
The Golden Domes in Iowa City.
I believe so.
After a rigorous 30 seconds on Wikipedia, they were built for a transcendental meditation program.
There you go. That's what it was. He's talked about his meditation in this like third, couple minute news segment I watched. Well, there were three of them. So yeah, transcendental meditation domes. I gotta tell you, man, he is an interesting person. He did found Twin Galaxies, and although the arcade closed down in 1984, they remained the company Twin Galaxies, stuck around. They remained the scorekeeping company of high scores, and as we transitioned into the modern age, it became twingalaxies.com, where if you go there right this moment, they still serve that purpose. They are still the high score keepers of the video game world. Not everyone uses them, but they have all your modern games and high scores where it's applicable on there. So
Do they track speed runs as well?
they don't. Speedrun is its own community. We've looked at that website. Rob, isn't it literally like speedrun dot? I don't remember. We've covered that before.
We've definitely talked about it. I don't games done fast. I don't know. GGQ games done quick.
Games done quick. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
the speed runs have their own community. This is high scores.
Oh, high score. Sorry, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I don't
high
really know.
scores is twingalaxies.com. Man, this is why this story is just crazy. This story is just crazy, man. Who would have guessed that esports kind of got its start with the Electronic Circus that was literally going to be this traveling circus. I mean, it was supposed to be a circus, with
Yeah, literally.
monkeys.
It went from being supposed to be a circus to being a real circus.
That's so well said. That is so well said. I don't know. This story blew my mind. This is wild. This is wild. I am so in love with this one. It is so weird. This is exactly the kind of weird stuff I hoped to pull out of video game history when I started doing this.
It's that perfect combination of just unbridled ambition, and meeting harsh reality, um, being an idea that we know would later succeed, but was just way before its time.
True.
And it failed spectacularly, but in a way where, at least so far, nobody got hurt. And like it lets us laugh at it, right? If it was tragic, if somebody had died, then of course we'd be crushed and we wouldn't talk about it with the same levity. But um, everyone basically made it out unscathed with a couple good stories to tell, and I think that gives it a lot of extra gas.
That is very true. I don't know if Air Supply looks at it with such fond regard, but probably these 5 kids or 8 kids that were on the U.S. national video game. Well, I know for a fact they do because I, read stories, their interviews, and everything. So it was a good time period for them for sure. The Electronic Circus and the days that followed the tour. They Even though the tour was a disaster, there's never like this connotation that we were well, we were miserable, but they didn't hate it. If that makes sense, like it sucked, but if they hated it, they would have stopped after the first leg or the second leg. You know what I mean? They clawed and begged and did everything in their power to keep going. They were determined to finish the tour out. And I mean, to be fair, they got from Iowa to Seattle. They got across most of the country, half the country at least. Let's say, kind of fun. Well, I know they went back to Ohio at least. I remember an Ohio stop on the tour list. So,
Oh, that's unfortunate.
yeah, that's what I was about to say. Well, that is the story of the U.S. national video game team, Twin Galaxies, the Electronic Circus, Walter Day, and the video game capital of the world, Ottumwa, Iowa. If you're ever in a random trivia game, at your local brewery or bar or whatever, and someone says, "What is the video game capital of the world?" you can now answer Ottumwa, Iowa.
I'll keep that in mind.
There you go. So, all right. Well, this has kind of been a wild one, but there are a lot of other stories in video game history. A lot of the arcade titles that we talked about in today's episode, we have done episodes on in themselves. And of course, if you want to check out any of our old episodes, you can do so by going to our website, which is www.memorycardlane.com. Rob, what else can people do on our website?
Well, you can find a calendar of our future episode topics. You can find a link to our Discord where you can come chat with Dave and I about gaming topics or other episode topics, or who knows? You'll never know if you don't join. You can find a link to our Patreon where you can help support us and get access to our ad-free and unedited versions of all of our episodes. You hear some crazy stuff in there that you'll never know if you don't help support, so, just do the thing. And you can find links to our social media. I am on several platforms as Rob_O_Raptor and Dave.
I can be found on various platforms as David is wrong. I would like to add that the craziest thing that you typically hear on the unedited is typically me swearing at this podcast when it doesn't work right,
That's what he thinks now.
and
You just wait.
and us redoing things.
Nah, we're perfect. First time every time.
Well, we're close. We're getting way better. We do not have to redo things very often anymore. Each week.
That's right, Dave. We are getting better. We don't have to redo things very often anymore.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Each week, we tell you one story relevant to the current week in gaming history. It can be about a game, a console, technology, a museum. Today, we did a circus. So we do weird things. While telling you each story, we hope to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. Every week, when I sit down to do research for new episodes, I get excited when I find new things. I'm not gonna lie. I was beside myself when I learned that someone wanted to train chimpanzees to play video games. In case you hadn't noticed so far this episode.
I picked up on that when you texted me about it at 10.
Hey, did the story lead? Did it live up to the expectation? I didn't misadvertise it.
No, you did not. No, no, it was
Yeah,
perfect. It was
yes,
everything. I
it was good.
yeah, it's a wild ride to think that. I mean, basically, the guy woke up one morning and was like, "I'm going to do this insane thing that nobody's ever done before, and I'll figure it out as I go."
Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I get excited when I can teach new things. And in recognition of our fantastic cycle of teaching and learning and teaching, we like to do a little roundtable where we talk about our takeaways. So, Dave, I'll start with you as our guest today. What did you learn today? What's your biggest takeaway?
Literally everything.
I know. I
No,
know.
the whole just the circus. It's the goals that they had for it, their plans. I mean, the utter gumption to call an embassy and be like, "Hey, can we do like a video game thing?" And like to have it be something where they would say, "Yeah, sure," and then when you show up, they're like, "Wait, what the heck are you doing? Get out of here!" Like, just is a you admire the chutzpah if nothing
I
else.
know the balls on these guys,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, for sure. Rob, what did you learn today?
I learned everything, man. That was, we all know Billy. We all know Billy.
We know Billy.
That's a name that lives in infamy. If you don't actually know, go find out. Big name.
King of Kong.
Just
But
just
like,
watch the movie King of Kong and then ignore any other reference to him.
no, I was just say there's so much more, so much. That's honestly the smallest little tip of an iceberg. It's
True.
nothing compared to the whole story.
No. Well, Billy Mitchell has. There have been other documentaries after King of Kong where I'm not going to say that we're in love with him, but Billy Mitchell has worked really hard to rehabilitate his image, and he has succeeded to a certain extent. Like there are people that will never forget that debacle. Um, but he has also worked really hard to try to shift focus in from his for other contributions like this one, right? And it has gone a long way towards introducing him to a whole generation that maybe doesn't know King of Kong. So there is that out there. I think
Oh,
we
for
all know
sure.
what I learned today, since I've said it 5, 6, 7 times. I will never get tired of thinking about trained chimpanzees playing video games.
Yeah, or a man in a gorilla
Or
suit.
man, that's my favorite part. The trained chimpanzees turned into a man in a gorilla suit. Oh my goodness.
It's
That
again, it's the video game equivalent of the car you see at the Detroit Auto Show and then what actually comes out 2 years later.
yeah. Yeah, that is just. And now granted, I know that the gorilla was significant because Trading Places was not an unknown show. So they took a character from a popular TV show and stuck him on the stage, and he happened to be a gorilla, which was a guy in a suit. So I recognize that it's not as it's not as ludicrous as I kind of just make it seem when I'm going from one correlation to the other, but it's still ludicrous. It's asinine. They put a guy in a gorilla suit and they made him pretend to play video games while some game master competed against kids just off the stage. What? Okay, cool. Electronic Circus. I see you.
They couldn't have their gorilla looking bad, man.
I know. This was a fun one. This one shocked me. This was one that I went in and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to tell the story about the US National Video Game and, the championships and going on tour, playing against kids here, playing against there." I did not go into this with any inclination that any of the weird stuff, the circus or the tour problems happened. Like when I started diving into the team and its history and I found that, I was surprised. This episode has been a pleasant surprise. So, this was fun. All right. Well, that will wrap it up for this week. Before I wrap it up myself and take it into next week, We'll start with our guest, Dave. Anything that you'd like to contribute or add to today's episode?
No, thanks for having me. It's a blast as always. Um, and I really enjoyed being on the Eternal Darkness episode as well. That was really. Hey, why are you laughing? It was a good time.
It was great. I'm glad that you could join us for the Eternal Darkness episode.
Yeah, no, it just wait. This can't be happening. But no, it's great as always. Love learning about the cool video game stories that you find. I think with the way in which we consume video games, the past is often quickly forgotten.
Agreed.
Especially as you can't really find a working Atari anymore. You can't. It's hard to find a working Neo Geo, and so it's important to have these histories recorded somewhere. So I appreciate you doing your research as always.
Thank you. Rob, any contributions?
That was pretty fantastic. So I think we're good with that.
Yeah.
Great job, Dave.
Yeah. Good job, Dave. Thank you for joining us. You are
good job, Dave. And you too, Rob. Good job, Rob.
Yeah, here we go again.
Doctor?
Dave?
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 Oh, the Legion of Dave has returned.
Oh, all right. Well, as we hang up the jerseys of the U.S. national video game team, we're reminded of how these pioneers helped elevate gaming from a pastime to a competitive sport. Their influence paved the way for the global esports phenomenon that we know today. So, whether you're participating in esports, competing online, battling in arcade, take some time to remember the trailblazers who helped make gaming the spectacle it is today. Next week, we are stepping away from the competitive arenas of the U.S. national video game team to dive into the bizarre waters of Seaman. Released in 1999 for this. We're not going to get through that episode without giggling the whole time. We know this, right?
I'm sorry, you're diving into what?
We're diving into Seaman.
Okay.
Really?
No, it's 2025. I'm not judging.
No judgment. Released in 1999 for the Sega Dreamcast, this one-of-a-kind simulation invited players to care for a human-faced fish that not only responded to your voice, but often had something sarcastic to say in return. From its innovative microphone gameplay to its unforgettable weirdness, Seaman remains a unique entry in gaming history. So join us next week as we explore the humor, design, and legacy of this quirky title on an unconventional trip down memory card lane. Do the thing.